Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for card number 3 in my video series, One Stamp 4 Ways. I'm using this stamp set called Cloudy Skies by Simon Says Stamp each week during the month of March. For today's card, I'm using this stamp set a little bit differently. I'm using the cloud as a border stamp. So I'm going to be using the solid one from the set, and I'm supplementing with the Whole Herd by My Favorite Things. I'm using this cow and also the sentiment at the top. Now I wanted to stamp in black, and I thought I'd do a little experiment with all the different black inks that I have. And so here is the solid stamp with 7 of the inks that I have. And you can pause it here to take a closer look at it, but the Hero Arts black and the Simon Says Stamp black are clearly the best ones. And I think the Simon Says Stamp is just a little tiny bit better than the Hero Arts one, so I decided to use that one. So I'm going to take my stamp and I'm going to kind of rotate it a little bit every time I stamp it down, and I'm definitely going off the edge of the paper. Now, the Simon Says Stamp inks are really juicy and they will definitely stain your stamp, so you should be aware of that. So they are a little bit harder to clean, but the ink is so juicy and so dark, it just comes out so pretty. The first version of this card I made was with a I used VersaFine ink, and it just did not look as pretty as this does right here with such a dark image. Notice that I stamped directly to the card base, and that was just to limit my layers. And now I have a panel that's 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, and I'm just making sure that my cloud is clean since I use the Simon Says Stamp ink on it. And I'm using Pool Party and Stampin' Up! Cardstock because the Stampin' Up! Cardstock works the best with the Stampin' Up! Ink. So I'm using the same technique here by rotating my image so it doesn't look like it's a pattern. And so this is going to be my inside panel. I used a piece of scratch paper underneath just to make the cleanup a little bit easier. For the cow, I'm going to stamp him in Memento Tuxedo Black ink since I'm going to be coloring with Copics. I also stamped him on a Post-it and I cut it out with a scissor. And I didn't worry too much about the bottom of the cow because I wasn't going to need that masking. So I'm going to cover my cow. I wanted to have 3 different cows that look like 2 are standing behind. So I'm going to stamp one a good bit further up from my first one. And then my second one, I'm going to place him just in between the first and the second one. And that way they're all at different levels and you get some good perspective there. Before I color, I'm going to stamp my sentiment. I'm just going to use that same ink I've been using, Simon Says Stamp. And I'm using my MISTI to make sure I get it right. And I probably should have used my grid sheet because I think it was just a tiny bit crooked, but oh well, I think it's good enough. So I'm going to start coloring my cows now. Now the concern is that I use Stampin' Up! Paper, and I wasn't really thinking, I was really more thinking about the Pool Party ink looking nice. But this is not the best paper for Copic coloring. You can see how the Copic markers look a little bit splotchy. But I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to carry on here. I did an all over E00, just a very pale like a peachy color, and then I went in on the edges with E02, just a little bit darker. And once I covered the whole thing, here I am with an RV00, so it kind of makes the whole thing a little bit pinker, and this is just a good way to create colors that you don't really have. So I knew I wanted something a little pinker than those E markers, but I didn't have any colors in between, so I just added a light pink over the E, and it combined to make a pinkier peach than a yellowy peach. So now for my spots, I'm using C9. This is C9. I'm going all the way around the edges. I'm being really careful not to touch that peach because if I do touch it with this black, I haven't really given it any time to dry, and it'll suck up that black and start creeping over the line. And so I'm going to be really careful to stay in these lines. Now I used the C9 and then I used the C6 and I went back with the C9 again to darken it up and decided that C4 just wasn't going to make the cut. So I cut that out of my mix here and I'm just using C9 and C6. These are the same colors I used the last time I colored these cows. I just really liked the way they turned out, so I went ahead and did the same exact colors. I was actually quite surprised how well the Stampin' Up! Paper worked with the Copic markers with the end results here. So if I had to do it over again, I probably would choose a Stampin' Up! Paper just because the Pool Party is definitely going to look a lot better on the Stampin' Up! Paper than if I were to use Neenah. I am going to go ahead and use this dark color on the right side of the cow, and it is going to cover up the eye, but it's not a problem because I'm just going to take my Copic liner, my thin one, this is the 0.05, and just darken up that eye. And it's kind of hard to tell with the camera, but it really does look a lot better. For the grass, I'm using YG17 first. It's just a darker green. When I first did this card, I colored the whole bottom area green. So I filled in between the cows with grass, and I just thought it was too much and it was too distracting because the green and the pool party aren't perfect together. So I really just wanted to give a hint of grass. So what I ended up doing was just putting it at the bottom of the feet of each of the cows, and that's pretty much it. And I filled in with the YG25 just to get a little variation of color. Finally, I'm going to take this panel, flip it over, and get some of my Scotch foam tape. I'm just going to put 3 long strips of it and adhere it to the center of this card base. Sorry about my head there. And that is the card for today. So something a little bit different, using clouds as a border stamp. And there's lots of different stamps actually when you think about it that you can use as a border stamp. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.